You do all kinds of different stuff, but you're a writer and you're into sustainable agriculture. I'm a filmmaker and I'm into sustainable agriculture. So you and I have this like special combination of things that we can, disseminate some of this important information to people. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I don't want to take it for granted. I have before.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I often, there was a period in my life when I tried to separate them. I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be farming because it's taking away from my writing. And I entertained that fantasy for about a week. And it was the only period of my life when I remember experiencing depression, just being curled up on the floor of my studio, just completely empty. And it was a great experience because I learned that I need that balance. And that I'm not going to be able to get away with doing one without the other.
Just to sort of kick things off, you've been, at least living on a farm for much of your life?
All my life.
Okay.
Not yet, but we're going there.
How did you get into the realm of, or the idea of sustainable agriculture? Was that an always thing as well?
I didn't move to the farm. I didn't adopt a love of agriculture. I'm particularly rare when I tell you this is all I've ever known. And I grew up in the farm crisis, and so I was born in 1974 and was going to school in an agricultural area. And I often say people were, pushing kids off the farms like they were weeds in the spray line of pesticides, herbicides, I should say. And it was a period of time where we were considered stupid to still be on the land because the conditions were so bad. Farm abuse, alcoholism, suicide, abuse of the children and the wives. This was all what was going on. While this was happening and Schoharie County was just falling apart, that's where I live, my parents were kind of hippie farmers, and they were from New Jersey, but they were from the agricultural part of New Jersey that was getting pushed out of farming. And they relocated here because they could afford the farmland. It was very, very marginal land, but they had sort of renegade ideas. They weren't interested in the conventional crops. They were interested in sheep. My father had a passion for sheep. So we moved up to what was essentially what is the northern foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And here, in this particular little enclave where I live, farmers were losers long before everyone else considered them losers. This place was settled in the 1840s and then very quickly became obsolete because the hills are so steep. This frost is here 11 months out of the year. It's rocky, it's terrible ground. And so when farming started to industrialize after World War II, this community started to die. And the people who stayed were people who owned their land, but they couldn't afford to participate in in the conventional agricultural economy in any way. So they just sort of sunk their roots and held in. And it was this Northern Appalachian farm culture that I knew as a child. These people played the role of my surrogate grandparents. They were the ones who really guided me in my upbringing. They didn't espouse the values of Mother Earth News or anything like that, but they embodied that pragmatism. They came through the Depression, they came through the wars, and they spent their time with me because they had a very strong community ethic. While my father was a professor of animal science, and he was sort of coming at it as an academic, realizing, wow, the big land grant colleges, the ag colleges are pushing kids down a road that's really bad for the environment, that's really bad for their futures. I was being raised by people who could live on a couple $1,000s a year or less, because I was a latchkey kid hanging out with these Appalachian neighbors, if you will. And I was in the kitchen all the time with this old woman who made her way by cooking and gardening and canning, and I just absorbed that. And so I had my father's academic eyes, but I had this rural Appalachian experience, and I thought, because I went to school down in the valley where they were, modern and industrialized, I thought I had to go on and get a lot of education and be a straight A student, master that calculus and all that. So I did, and then the more I studied, the more I learned. I had a real interest in sociology, and I started to identify how very significant the world I came from was. And I invested myself, and my husband, by the time I finished school, joined me in this. We invested ourselves into taking my parents' hardscrabble sheep farm and working with my mom and dad to really build something that was multi-generational, that was highly diversified, and that could really help a community to bring itself back. So that's where I'm at. That's how I got here.
Thank you very much.
And that was the short version, Alan.
I'm sure there's much more to it. What I really wanted to do and just kind of take advantage of, some time that we all have, maybe a different platform that we can use to communicate, because I'll usually go out and film people who are doing regenerative, sustainable agriculture here in central Pennsylvania. Well, let's talk to some people that could speak to the idea of abundance in a time when people are constantly being bombarded with messages that say scarcity. When I was talking to my wife about who I might be able to talk to in this series, your book came up because it was pivotal for our household in terms of changing our mindset, our philosophy to one of abundance. And just to give you a little bit of the backstory on that, when the economy sort of took a hit 10 or 11 years ago.
2008.
There you go. My wife lost her job in Philadelphia when she was commuting there from Lancaster. And, we sort of were looking at each other like, how are we going to make ends meet? And we eventually, she found your book, and we both really enjoyed it a lot. We would talk about it. And just some of the fixing things rather than buying things, and saving food, and she was making cheese then at the time, and all kinds of just amazing things that we learned. But I think even more valuable, that abundance mindset shift for us, and it's never left. In fact, it's propelled us into all kinds of other things. Her in early childhood education, me in regenerative and biodynamic farming. So just thank you, first of all. The book I'm referring to is called Radical Homemakers. What about what you were talking about your childhood that you wanted to sort of bring up and share with people, does that book mean to you?
It's interesting that you talk about that, because I don't know if you know, but I've written a sequel. I'm working, I've got a couple publishers who are actually I'm interviewing with this week. So I have to decide who gets it. But the next one is called Give Hope, Feed Love, and it's taking that to the next steps. So if I tie some of those ideas in, it's because it's foremost in my mind. But I guess what happened, the genesis of Radical Homemakers happened when I was finishing grad school, and I had all these lofty ideas about what I was supposed to do for a livelihood, but I had a PhD in sustainable agriculture and community development. And my husband had been fired from his job, and I came home, and I hadn't finished yet, and he wouldn't tell me what had happened here until I agreed to not quit school. And he says, I have news for you, but you have to stay. You have to stay. I'm not going to tell you anything unless you stay. And I didn't know what that meant, but yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. And he says, okay, because I lost my job today. And I freaked out because I had this idea that he would work till 65. I would work till 65. We would have 2.4 kids, and we would be on the program. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Even though I loved farming, even though I loved writing, I didn't believe in these things. And I came home, and we were working with my parents on the farm at that time as well. My husband and I had a cabin just up the road from the family farm. That's where I am now. And he had taken one of our chickens that we had roasted the weekend prior, and he'd made soup. I drove 2.5 hours home from Cornell, and it was a rainy night, and I was so scared and so frightened. And when I got there and I walked in, and he'd made a bowl of soup, and it was the best bowl of soup I ever ate in my whole life, because I sat there and I realized I had everything I wanted. It didn't freaking matter. The food was good. The wood fire was there. He was there. And my parents were down the road. And there's this moment when you go, what do I care about the job for? And so we went through that. And the next morning, it snowed like crazy. And my husband and I are outdoor, hikey type of people. And we woke up and we looked out the window, and everything was blanketed in the first snow of the year. And we rolled over and looked at each other and went, oh my God, we don't have to go anywhere. And I remember saying to him, I don't think we can go back. And we must have logged 8 or 11 miles that day, just going through the woods, following every dirt road, following every trail. And as we did, we just fell more and more in love with this life. And economically, it didn't make sense in the old paradigm. But then I realized, oh my God, I've been prepared for this my whole life. Everyone I knew and respect and that I was happiest with growing up never had much money, and money was never a worry. And I realized I knew these things. I knew how to cook. I knew how to, if I didn't know exactly how to fix something on the sewing machine, I wasn't afraid to try. And I knew about canning and I knew about gardening. I'm a terrible gardener, by the way, so let's not really go down that. But I knew if I had to, I could. And we started piecing these ideas together. And so that's what that book meant to me, to face these big changes in life without fear, because we recognize so often fear comes from this whole money issue, which is just, once you break through it, you realize it's just pure silliness. It's just this fake thing. What is wealth? But wealth is what's right outside that window. Wealth is outside your window. It's the flowing water, and it's the mountains, and it's the stone walls, and it's the fields, and it's the food that comes from it, and the people that you love. And when you start to recognize, oh, the only reason I'd actually want money is to connect more deeply with those things. Well, why don't we just kind of push that to the side and just go right for what we want? And that's what defines us. And I ended up becoming this crazy entrepreneur doing all kinds of things. We built all those, domestic skills, and we built this life with our family. But then with our family, we've built all these other businesses, and they are all founded on the same thing. From any of them, I can walk away at any point in the day, go hang out in the woods, go drink my coffee next to a stream, and be with my family, be with my kids, be with my husband. It's still all there.
You're killing me, Shannon. This is so beautiful. I didn't know I'd need I didn't know I needed tissue. I'm usually, when I'm interviewing for work, I'm usually the one trying to bring the tears, Oh man.
I believe in what I do passionately. I really do. I live this life of joy. I mean, even now with everything that's going on, I really don't like when people in the regenerative movement I got, 60 bushels of corn in the freezer, and I got, so many loaves of bread baked, and I slaughter my own deer, so I'm going to outlast the rest of you, and I got all the toilet paper. I'm just not impressed by that. That's not my idea of surviving this. That's maybe surviving, but certainly not thriving. I think this whole thing that we're going through is this opportunity to wake up and to come alive and to realize, oh, really what matters is who you're stuck at home with, and what are you going to do to make this life count with these people, with the land that is right outside your window. And so I know it's hard. I know people are going through all kinds of fear. I think there's more fear than illness in many ways. And I don't even want to take a shot at the illness and what they're facing over there. But for the rest of us, the way we help them the most is if we find joy and purpose and abundance and learning experiences by staying the hell out of their way and sticking to these backyards and these homes that we have.
Your story, gosh, was so just perfect. I don't know if it's something you've been thinking about lately, or if you're if that just kind of came out here right now.
No, I haven't done this one in a long time. I could spin some other yarn for it if you give me the right prompt.
Yeah, I mean, just when it's gone, then you have this opportunity to create something new and realize the facade of some of the other stuff. What I feel you're really talking about is opportunity. In my training in biodynamics, we talked about a seed, and that a seed represents chaos. But wait, chaos isn't a terrible thing. Chaos is actually a beautiful thing because it represents the fact that anything could happen and anything good could happen. And I think that's what a lot of people have right now that they don't realize.
Yes, and fear is standing in the way of making the most of that. So we got to just get people to take a deep breath and push past it.
What are some things that, some practical things that are kind of, easy toes in the water that people can do to experience the abundance that's right around them and right in front of them, that you might be able to think of?
Okay, a lot of us have houses. We're not all stuck in high rises right now. So if you're stuck in a high rise, go to a window and look out, for God's sakes. I loved what they did in Italy, singing songs to their neighbors. But if you're stuck in a home, go outside, stop drinking your coffee at your kitchen table. Go find anything, a rock, a tree, a patch of soil. Sit out there, remove yourself from the comforts and the distractions that are inside that house, and go someplace where you can root and connect. Be there. I mean, all right, even if you're there and you're still thinking of your to-do list, I get it, it's fine, but take yourself out of that situation and be in that space. Without the phone, I know when I go outside, there's no cell service, so it's very easy for me to just go out and disconnect. But that might not be the case for other people. So forget your phone. Just go and lean up against the tree and, admire what how the branches are when you've got that new spring blue sky and those clouds going overhead. Even if the branches don't have leaves yet, admire how the buds are getting pink and how the birds, I mean, you do it every single day and you notice, oh, wow, there's a new bird that just came back from down south. And keep doing it. Keep just going outside and experiencing that, because then you start to realize, oh, that's wealth. That's wealth. I'm breathing this clean air and nobody can bother me while I'm here. And I can feel the ground and the earth. And these are the things of which I am a part. I do this, I do it in the rain, I do it in snowstorms. My husband knows you can't even serve me a cup of coffee indoors. I have to go outside. By cocktail hour, I'm ready to drink indoors, but I'm a lot of cocktail hours, I'll be out there too. But I just think that that's like the simplest way that you start. And, I thought I'd totally gotten out of camping and everything else. And my husband and I started doing this a couple of years ago. And next thing I knew, I was like totally intolerant of being inside, totally intolerant of hotels. So if we traveled, it was with a backpacking tent and some rollaway mattresses or whatever in our tent, and that was it. And because we kept everywhere we wanted to go, we wanted to see and breathe and feel the real natural wealth around us. And that's how we felt happiest. And then suddenly these things that you think you have to pay for to be comfortable just become obstructions to experiencing the true vibrance that's around us. It's still here. We have not destroyed it yet, but we have to start seeing it and we have to practice seeing it. And I think once you practice seeing it, it does help you breathe deeper. It does help you think more clearly. And then you might start doing some of these other things like, wow, how could I change my life so that when this all ends, I don't have to jump in my car and commute? How can I start doing some things at home to reduce these actual dollars that I need coming in? That's part of our economic power. My taxable income last year was like $1,000. The year before it was a big year. We had like $12,000 for a family of four. It's crazy what we live on, but it's because we had this shift in mindset where we go, oh, got food, got firewood, got each other. All right, well, it might be nice to take a trip. We'd like some money for that, but okay, this year looks like with what's happening, no trips happening. So well, let's use the money for other things. Let's use the money to invest in some groceries so that people in the community don't have to go to the store because we have, distribution trucks for our cafe. And let's do different things to keep money and wealth circulating rather than having to hold it for ourselves.
Yeah, I love the way that you talk about redefining wealth and poverty. And yeah, it's like if we have an opportunity to see that real wealth or that new wealth at the end of all of this, it could change everything.
Oh, I'm hopeful that this is going to be such a game changer. I am so saddened by what all of the medical system is enduring right now. That's brutal. But for the rest of us, man, we better make every moment count. This is, I saw someone put on Instagram, I think we've all been sent to our rooms to think about what we've done. I really hope that we use this time because we could just bring about such powerful change.
Another thing that seems to resound throughout the writing of yours that I've read is sort of a maybe best summarized as use what you have, start where you are and do what you can kind of mentality. Obviously we have different people in different situations. Like you said, some people are in high rise and, concrete jungles. Some people are more remote and may, not have access to a lot of things. You said go outside. What are some other things that people can do to start to see each other and start to see what it is they really have? Like, for instance, in your book, I think you talked about a balcony garden or a rooftop garden or whatever. Like, you don't have to own a farm in order to produce food.
You don't have to own a farm to produce food, and you don't have to be producing food to be building a more sustainable life. You can. For a lot of people, that is the way they connect. But it could be something as simple as, wow, I'm eating bread every day. What would it mean to make my own?
Or I was able to get a chicken at the store, and now I can also make stock.
Right.
Which was out.
What would it mean if I took that chicken and brought it all the way through and used every last bit of it? You really have to start. I believe that there's so many skills that can improve our self-reliance. And if you look at real communities from long ago, nobody could do all of them. It was actually about the interweaving of skills, of everybody doing a little bit of something that made things available. I'm not a big keen on, the whole homesteading, I don't need anybody, I'm an island kind of independence. I just think that's a bunch of balderdash. So yeah, if you're in the high rise and you start experiencing what it means to bake your own bread or to cook your own meat or to grow potted herbs on your sill, these little things, they seem so tiny at first, but the little high you get when a seedling sprouts and the experience of knowing when yeast comes alive and it starts to expand in the bread, or even if you simply, for God's sakes, even if you don't have a washer and dryer, you stop going to the dry cleaners and just hand wash an article of clothing and then hang it up to dry. I mean, all of these little things that start to put us in touch with our objects, our base level needs, and experience what does it mean to just take care of myself, to take responsibility for these things. I think that's where it starts. And it doesn't have to be an enormous undertaking. And I can guarantee failure if you say you go all out and try to do it all at once. You will be dropping a lot of things. But when you pick up a little thing at a time, and you base it based on what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, what you're curious about, that's how the changes become enduring, because it's satisfying and it furthers your line of inquiry into this.
You mentioned the importance of community, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
How can we best foster community right now?
I want social distancing to bring us closer. If you're seeing the blog or the podcast, you probably know that this is a point for me. This is where I break down, because my life is about my community. And one of the crazy things that my husband and I did here was we had this great farm with my parents, and we had a post office in our building. They tried to take in our hamlet, and they tried to take our post office away. And I did some writing that kind of rallied the community, and we led one of the largest charges in the country when the U.S. Postal Service was trying to close post offices. So they couldn't close it, and we saved it, but then the owners put the building up for sale, and it was on sale on the market for a couple of years, and nobody wanted this white elephant building. And so Bob and I had this idea to take our farm, which was, a community, it's a grass-fed farm, direct marketing, and we thought, what if we used our farm that's 2 miles up the road from the crossroads of our hamlet, that's the center of our community, what if we moved our center of business into the community? And we bought that building and we built a cafe. And We were laughed at because we said no. We went to Seattle. We studied coffee like the real pros. We learned to drink coffee like other people drink wine, and we said, what if people drove up to the northern foothills of Appalachia to get the best cup of coffee they ever had? and and then the menu was something based on what we had at the farm, based on beef shanks, based on lamb, asabuco, whatever. We didn't care. It was just based on good home cooking and good coffee. And we thought maybe we would attract, trendy hipsters who would come see us. It's not who we got. We got people from our own county. And in our county, the best cup of coffee was debatable whether it was the gas station or Dunkin' Donuts. And people said, no, 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 we're going to go to Sapbush. And they came to believe in us. And we had this crew of regulars who came in every week. And you could never, you have to put, when you take an order, you have to put the table number. And the table numbers are constantly changing because people get up and go from one table to the next. Hey there, kiddo. And they kept moving because so much exchange was going on. And when the social distancing happened, we shut it immediately because this thing that I believed in so strongly could have been the poison for my neighbors. And that has been brutal for me. I don't hold it together very well when I talk about that. I feel like a piece of me has been torn out. And we're recognizing it will be so painful for people to come that we are right now spending time just Skyping, FaceTiming our customers, just sitting down. I have a lineup of people I'm having virtual cocktail hours with. I have people I'm meeting with on Saturday to have coffee. We promise that we're going to sass them. They have to make their own coffee though. And I just try to keep that connection alive. Thank goodness we have all this digital technology available to us. And we're going to stay closed until this is done. But we've also, though, my kids are in the next room right now. We made a list of vulnerable neighbors. We divided it up among people in the community, and we've assigned the kids to make the phone calls. Wow. And each kid has 2 or 3 vulnerable members of the community that's their person. And they call every week, and it's the same kid calling the same person. And, we've done things like deliver hand sanitizer. Someone else was really craving chocolate, so we delivered chocolate. They're coming to me because I have this cafe. I was on the food distribution line for our regional local food produce and other foods. So now people are calling me and I'm taking their grocery lists. And we're just sort of turning the front of the cafe into an ad hoc food co-op where we can divide foods up and keep people out of the grocery stores and doing self-serve pickups so they can maintain the social distancing. So we're trying to maintain community ties and still honor these parameters that we have to do.
Yeah, that's great. The innovation that is taking place in terms of A, helping your neighbor, and B, retrofitting, if you will, or shifting business ideas to things that can actually help. Like, for instance, in my industry, we're like saying, hey, we can still edit. We can do things like this.
Right.
Do you have a message that you need to get out, particularly one of hope, or one of help, right? This is Remy, by the way.
Hi, Remy. How are you? I'm Shannon.
That's Shannon. Yeah, so, and a week ago, I might have been like, Remy, shoot. I'm working. But not anymore.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that is just great. I'd love to talk maybe some more or come out there and do an interview sometime about grass-fed beef or something like that. But I don't want to take up too much of your time now for the same reason of this kind of stuff that needs to be going on. I really appreciate taking a chance, not a big chance or a risk, and just saying, let's hop on a call together. I appreciate that. Is there anything else that you just might want to say or leave people with, or even just say like, hey, talk about your blog or your
Yeah, I mean,
books?
I would love it if people came over. You can see the blog at sapbush.com, but the podcast, you can download that anywhere, and it's the Hearth of Sapbush Hollow podcast. You can find it from the blog if you don't know where else to go. I'm trying to use my voice to remind people to look at this a little differently, and to connect and experience it rather than try to hide and deny it.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you.